Hello everyone. So I was just going through Uber's initial architecture, how they manage lots of requests between riders and drivers and everything. So I realized that when they were in their initial phase, they were using this concept called as polling. Now, this concept of polling is like widely covered and it's very fundamental, but I found it really interesting how it was being implemented in the Uber's initial phase and how they like later switched to like server sent events and gRPC, which they're using. They have this protocol or thing called as ramen, so that is also being used currently. So before that, let's understand what polling basically is. So what is polling? So polling is basically a client requesting a server for either a data or anything, like it may be uh, for some certain events or like any availability of data at regular intervals. So let's say we have a client. So there are like two types. There is like short polling and long polling. So to explain what polling basically is, you have the client and the server. The client requests the server for some data, and uh, the server responds that if the data is present, it sends the data back, and if it's not, it sends null. It doesn't send anything, basically like a null check or anything. And this is one cycle, and once this is done, it waits for like t intervals of time, let's say like 2 or 3 seconds, and client again like request, oh, is the data available now? And server responds, no, it's not. So it's a cycle after every t intervals that, oh, you send to server and you request and server sends back. So let's say the client request, do you have the data? And it replies, yes, I have the data. It sends the data. So this is basically what short polling is, or polling is in general sense. Now, since we have this concept of WebSockets and everything, why do we actually need to use polling, right? Why do we have to use it? So have you wondered how the cricket scores are being updated? Like if you go to Cricinfo or anything, they're using this concept of polling because it's straightforward, it's simpler, and yeah, when it comes to like larger applications, it's hard, but this is a simple use case. So the client can basically poll, what's the is the score updated? If it's yes, it returns the updated score, and so forth. Also, when it comes to printers status check, if the printer is ready for the next print or anything, it basically does the polling. That is, you check, oh, is the uh, printer ready? Is like, is it busy or something? And you basically poll, and when the printer is ready, you can show that, oh, printer is ready for the next print. So this is like the use case of short polling. Now again, to improve the polling, there's this another concept called long polling. So what happens is, you basically deal with persisting the connection. So when I say persisting the connection, here the client requests the server for data, let's say. Now server immediately doesn't responds that if the data is there or not. It persists. If the data is not there, it has a set interval of time, and it checks, oh, if the data is there, it it returns the response, and if the threshold timeout is done, then it just closes the connection. So this is still better than short polling because it's using less resources, it's optimizing that, and the network congestion is of course lower. So now, why did I even discuss this polling? Because I was studying the Uber's architecture, right? Like, so what problem did they initially face, like when it came to polling? So let's say driver, which is the client side app, or maybe customer, but they request like, driver sites app is requesting, is there any new ride which is available to the server, and server is like replying no, it's not, or maybe yes. So it's constantly doing after every t interval of time. So now what are the problems that can be faced? Now, of course, resource usage is really high. That is one thing. When it comes to scalability, you should know how to minimize the resource usage and maximize your goal, that is to meet the requirements. Yeah. And now, since this was entirely, the polling is entirely initiated from the client side, so of course the battery drain is high, so we would lose the battery drain. It could lead to network congestions. Uh, yeah, since we are doing it very frequently, it could actually lead to that, and that would eventually lead to app performing really slow, which no user would want really. So this, and of course, now as you scale, you don't just maintain, like there are like many features which comes to play. So when that happens, it's really important that you maintain that consistency across the whole architecture and the system. And it's really difficult when it comes to polling because there's huge resources being used. So yeah, that was the initial uh, architecture of like Uber and how it operated and what polling is. They have, of course, moved to gRPC and, of course, Ramen, which is an interesting concept in itself, but we'll discuss on it more. But this is it for the video.